Life has been very challenging, and the decisions we make definitely have consequences. I want my story to be a learning lesson more than glorified. As we see on TV, we see a lot of glorifying where you see all these hustlers, with these big fancy cars, nice mansions. But my path of illegal activity became when I was in a pressure point and being evicted and becoming homeless. I was introduced. Look, I had $500 to my name. I did when I went with him. So I'm like, now I'm interested. So I was like, teach me what you're doing. Once the investigation gets started, Julius was murdered in his mama's driveway.
We're here for the introduction of In and Out. It's a movement to change the world. It represents all things and all of us at all times. It's about freeing ourselves of any prison. Welcome to In and Out Podcast, where I have dope conversations with amazing people who have been formerly incarcerated. I am Eric Geralt, your host, and today I'm talking with my guest, Andre Willis, who overcame incredible circumstances and turned his life around. Andre is going to be taking us through his incredible journey of overcoming hardship, pain, adversity, and struggle. What's happening, Andre? How you doing?
I'm doing just fine, Eric. How you doing today?
I'm doing well, my brother. I'm doing better than good. I'm blessed.
Great.
Yo, I appreciate you taking the time out to share your story with us, to help make an impact on others, take us along that incredible journey that you've been going on, that journey called life. I want to give you an opportunity to introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Andre Willis, senior. I was born in Atlanta at Hughes Spalding Hospital, Children's Hospital of Grady. Born and raised in Decatur, on the east side. Decatur, where it's greater.
That's what they say, no doubt about it.
Yes, sir. Life has been very challenging, and the decisions we make definitely have consequences. I want my story to be a learning lesson more than glorified. As we see on TV, we see a lot of glorifying where you see all these hustlers, with these big fancy cars, nice mansions, eating at nice restaurants, just living life. But illegal activity as far as the street life, selling drugs, two things, death or prison.
No doubt. And listen, I'm glad that you was able to take this time and talk with me today so we could chop it up. We can have this real conversations because, at In and Out, we really focus on everything is real. We consider ourselves the realest podcast on the streets and everywhere else because of real individuals like you. Now, for those of y'all that don't know, Andre Willis is an icon of the city of Atlanta, the state of Georgia, and really throughout the whole nation. He's one of the last Mohicans, one of the best that ever did it. He got legendary status. He was one of the founders of some of the hottest clubs in the whole movement, the whole hip hop movement, the whole culture as we know it today in Atlanta. For some of y'all that been around, been around since the 80s and the 90s, you were probably going to Club Phoenix at some point. If you was coming outside, you was going to Club Phoenix. It was one of the hottest clubs in Atlanta. It was the hottest club in Atlanta. It was one of the hottest clubs in the country. Andre Willis was one of the co-founders, one of the owners of Phoenix Dance Club and many others. He owned the Parrot. He owned Phoenix Dance Club. At one point in time, he owned Dominique's 21. He went on to own Deion's 21. So the brother got a story to tell. He knows where the body's like, and he's gonna share some of those stories with us. So I want to take you all the way back. I want to take you all the way back to the early 90s when you owned Phoenix Dance Club. Tell us a little bit about, Phoenix Dance Club, how you got in it, who you owned it with, what you was doing at that time. How'd you get the money to put it up to own that club?
Well, blood, sweat, and tears, which is hustling. Hustling comes with many different trials and tribulations.
So let me ask you this. So you weren't born with a lot of money, were you?
Oh, no, not at all. I wanted to, actually in high school, I was a square.
Really?
Yeah, oh man, yeah.
Wow.
Scared of anything. I didn't drink. I didn't smoke marijuana. Like, most high schoolers do. I was just a square. I was scared of all of that stuff.
How was your life growing up? Did what was your family life like?
I'm the only child from my mom. So she winded up going to prison when I was in the 9th grade.
Wow.
So I had to move to Athens with my aunts and uncles and grandmama. So
So you grew up in Athens, Georgia? Is that where you went to high school?
yeah, that's where I went to high school at. Athens.
Your father wasn't around? Or
My father is from Augusta, but we don't have a relationship.
okay. So him and your mother were not together?
No, no, they weren't even together when I was born. So once I graduated from high school, I moved back to Atlanta.
Okay.
And my mom was still in prison.
How much time did your mother do?
She did 25 months in Hardwick, and then she did another 25 months on Ponce.
Are those are state prisons?
Yes. I went to after I graduated, I went to the National Guard.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. I did my basic and AIT in Fort Knox, Kentucky.
Wow.
So I wanted to go to college, but back then when it was time for us to go to college, they didn't have all these grants and loans that they have today. So the only thing that you could do was like a Pell Grant, which was very slim. And if your parents didn't have good credit, wasn't no financing to go to college.
Right.
So everything is changed now. So I did everything I could to try and be successful. My grandmom and mom invested into a janitorial service for me, and I did that. I only had one means of transportation. My god sister asked to borrow my car. So I was telling her, hey, look, you got to be careful with the car because this is the only way I can take care of my contracts and survive. Hour and a half, 2 hours later, she called me. She done told her the car out. So I lose all the contracts, facing eviction. I become homeless.
How old were you at this period of time?
This was in 88, so I was 22.
Let me take you back a little bit because I want to get a little more of the background. So when you were living with your mom, you were growing up. Would you say things were tough financially?
No.
Okay, y'all were okay when your mother was out.
When my mom was out, before she went to prison, my stepdaddy, which I call him my stepdaddy, they were never married. But back then, back in the 70s, in the 80s, if you stayed together more than 6 months, you became common law wife and husband.
Okay.
So I call him my stepdaddy, which he raised me. Me not knowing, I'm again a square. I'm just going to school, not knowing that he was actually a street guy also.
Wow.
And I didn't find out until my mama got locked up when I was in the 9th grade.
Wow. Okay, so you were in the 9th grade when she got locked up. But would you say your stepdad was a positive influence on you? You had a male figure in your life, is what I'm getting at. That was a positive influence. Okay.
He made sure I was, I played football, baseball, did basketball when I was in elementary. I was a little too short, so I stopped playing basketball and just focused on football and baseball.
Okay, so you say you was a square, but you was an athlete.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's what's up. So when your mother went to prison for a couple of years, you moved with your grandparents, your aunt and uncle. Okay, everything was still okay financially. You didn't.
Yeah, because I was getting some assistance. Back then, again, I don't know how I was getting it, but I was getting some type of assistance from the government also. But my aunt and uncle took me in, and I consider them my second parents.
Okay, all right. So I guess for a lack of a better word, growing up, you had average circumstances. You didn't grow up in the projects. You didn't necessarily have drug dealers around you or that type of. You had positive influences.
I had positive influence, but of course, I felt lonely because I was the only child.
Right.
My mom was gone.
Right.
So I still felt alone.
Gotcha.
You know, although my aunt and uncles showed me love
Right.
and took care of me as their own, but you know, nobody has that feeling of their biological parent.
Of course.
You know, I wanted my mama.
All right. So then you went to the National Guard, and how long did you stay in the National Guard?
I was in there from 85. I graduated in 84. June of 84, I went to the National Guard shortly afterwards. But then I went to basic and AIT in January of 1985. So I winded up getting discharged in 1992.
Okay. All right. Well, the reason why I asked those questions, because, listen, everybody's circumstances is different. I ended up getting involved in criminal activity, and I ended up going to federal prison. And I didn't have a mother or father that sold drugs or did any crime ever. As you can say, I was a square too. Not really a square in that aspect, but like, because I actually started doing street activity at a lot younger age. But I can't use the excuse that my parents were doing something illegal, because they weren't. So I'm asking you, at what point, what was it that led you to end up, getting involved and becoming a kingpin, really?
We can come up with reasons to make excuses, but it's always somebody that's been in the situation that we've been in and chose a different path and been successful.
No question.
But my path of illegal activity became when I was in a pressure point and being evicted and becoming homeless.
You got a lot of drug dealers you got a lot of people out here that's homeless though. How does a homeless man become a drug dealer?
Well, yeah, I was introduced. Look, I had $500 to my name. This was before I was evicted. I had $500 to my name. Now, my god sister was married to what I call my cousin. Well, we say we cousins, but we grew up together from youth football. He came to me, he said, Dre, I want to borrow $250. Mind you, I only had $500. This was in 88.
Right. 500 was more than 500 now.
Yeah, but I still didn't have enough money to pay my rent.
Right.
You know, my mom had moved to New York at that time.
And he said he'd give it right back.
He'd give it right back in 30 minutes.
30 minutes.
$50 plus the $250 back. So he came back, he brought me $300.
Oh, he did?
He said, well, Dre, I need to get the $250 again. I'll bring you another $50, but this time you can go with me. So I get in the car with him and go with him. So now the $250 done turned into $350. Because I done made $100 in an hour and a half. Okay. So now I'm looking like, damn, $100 in an hour and a half?
Did you know what he was doing at that point? Or?
I did when I went.
When you went with him?
When I went with him. So I'm like, now I'm interested.
Right.
So I was like, teach me what you're doing. So we would take the initial $250, back then, 8 ball might cost you $200. We'll buy 8 ball, cook it up. We'll drive to Beaufort. Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. We'll flip that 8 ball, eventually came into a quarter. We'll do that every weekend. But eventually, his dad owned the electric company. So he wanted him to go to school to learn electricity so he could take over the business. So he said, I gotta stop. My dad wanted me to go to college to do this or go to trade school and learn electricity. But I had no choice. I stayed. Well, I did have a choice, but I chose to stay in the streets.
And you like the money?
I like the money, the
you
fast money.
Offering you
the fast money.
The fast money.
Of course, we know that, we get caught, we can go to jail.
But if we smart, we thinking we ain't gonna get caught.
We thinking irrational. We think, hey, we ain't gonna get caught. I'm low key.
No, just as a little aside, a little footnote. What happened to the cousin? Did he end up becoming an electrician?
Yes.
He never ended up going to prison?
Never ended up going to prison.
Wow.
He said that when I got locked up, they came and questioned him. But just like, I accepted all responsibility because it was it was me. I did this.
Right. But how did you Now you went from 8 balls to quarters to what? Quarter key. How did you blow?
Whole keys. I met Julius.
Julius. Who's Julius?
Which became my best friend.
What's his name?
Julius Klein.
Julius Klein. How'd you meet him?
I met him through this girl that I considered my god sister. Okay. She was dating him, or he was liking her. So she introduced me to him. And back then in the 90s.
Just the early 90s?
Yeah, early 90s. Well, no, I'm sorry.
Just late 80s?
Late 80s.
Okay.
We're going to go back to 88.
Okay.
So I meet him because she was a bartender at Magic City. He frequented.
This is your god sister?
Yes. He frequented Magic City. But she knew what I was into. And she, figured out what he was into. So she introduced me to him. And that became my connect at a discount price. Now, the guys from Detroit, Atlanta was a city within itself, but you had guys from Detroit to move to Atlanta because of the money that could be made back then. And they came down south to make more money because, up Detroit, it was higher. But he had a connect out of Miami. So the connect would go from Miami to Atlanta. So eventually, I started out buying a quarter key from him. But every day I was calling him for
Quarter key
every day. And he was like, hey, look here, man. I'm not going to keep running back and forth to you see you every day. There's too much running. So I say, well, Atlanta, my city. Why don't you just turn me on to the whole shipment? At the time, he's getting 20 keys. It was taking me about 2 weeks to move 20 keys at that time.
Right. How much were they going for at that time?
To be honest with you, he was charging me about $18.5. So I was still selling them for 20, 21, 21.5 at the most. But by me going through 20 keys every 2 weeks, that was money back in the late 80s.
Ain't no question. That'd be money to 2025.
Exactly. So I eventually grow bigger than what he could supply.
Wow. You ran through Julius.
Yes. So he was into more of the business side also. So I said, why don't you take the business side, let me take the street side. So that's how me and him established our relationship.
See, I became more partners. Where at first it was a buyer-seller relationship.
So I'll tell you how we became partners. He had a warehouse.
But you became partners in the drug game too, right?
Right. That's what I'm saying. This how we became partners, from the drugs to the legitimate. He had a storage place, and back then the keys was going for like $30,000. He had about 4 or 5 keys in the storage. I was the only one that had a key, and he was the only one. So I go to the storage one day. I say, all this shit gone. So I hit him up. I say, hey, look, man, you been to the store? He say, no. I said, well, man, all the shit gone. Ain't nothing in there. So he immediately came and met me. He met me and my cousin. And he was like, man, I need my shit back.
Do you think he thought you had something to do with it?
I'm gonna tell you. He looked at me, he say, look, man, I know you ain't had nothing to do with it because we can make more money in the long run. But then he looked back at my cousin, he say, you the motherfucker that took our dope. Yeah. He say, if you don't get our shit back, I'm gonna kill you. I say, hold on a minute. You're not finna threaten me in front of, you're not gonna threaten my cousin in front of me. I say, I don't think my cousin would put me in a predicament like that, knowing that, this shit could be life-threatening. He said, well, he the only motherfucker knew. I said, no, hold on. Your runner before you cut him off knew about the shit. I say, so you're not going to threaten him. I say, because if so, either you going to die or you going to kill me and him together. Or all of us going to die. Right. So he was like, look, man, I got this white man that's done invested in this, that, and other. So I was like, look, man, I get you your money back. So I eventually started paying him back.
Okay, never found out who took it.
Never found out who took it.
Who do you think took it to this day?
I still think his runner might have took it.
Because he cut him off.
Yeah, but I had bought a convertible RX-7 back then. And he was like, if you want to continue, put the car up. Okay. I drove the car straight to his apartment. Gave him the title back. I said, man, I need some more work. So I started buying, investing, and paying the tab back. Right. I bought him a Rolex watch and paying him back. I had a Rolex ring. He said, man, I like that ring. I said, you can have it. Took it off and gave it to him. He said, look here, man, you don't pay me nothing else back. You don't owe me shit. He said, now motherfucker ever came to me that done took a loss and paid me back like you.
He knew you was a real one.
You don't owe me nothing else. Now I'm gonna put you in these investments. That's when I started getting in the clubs with him as a silent partner. So they consider me as Ghost, from Power on the back scene. Just like I said, Atlanta was my city. I told him, hey, look, you ain't got to pick up another kilo. Let me do this. I'll do the investments. You just be the business mind behind it. So we started out with Dominique's 21, excuse me.
Oh, you started with Dominique's 21?
I started with Dominique's 21. Okay.
So tell me the science, tell me the story behind that.
Well,
for those that know Dominique's 21, and for those that don't know Dominique's 21, this is when you say Dominique, we're talking about
Dominique Wilkins.
Dominique Wilkins.
From the Hawks.
A Hall of Famer from basketball player from the Hawks.
So they went to him.
Who was they?
Julius. Okay. Fred Tokars. At the time, here again, I'm in the streets. I don't know the business side.
Fred Tokars and Julius had a relationship with Fred Tokars. That was his lawyer.
That was his lawyer, business lawyer. Okay. Fred was incorporating all the businesses. Gotcha. Remember I told you Sarah used to work at Sneakers.
Right. Sarah was Fred Tokars' wife.
Exactly. Okay. Which was murdered in November of 92.
92. Oh, just a few months after the club opened.
Yeah, and after Julius's murder.
After Julius's murder, then Fred Tokars' wife mysteriously got murdered.
Right.
It was one of the biggest cases.
Eventually, our federal case became the biggest case in federal Georgia history.
Okay. Did they pull in the Fred Tokars murder as part of that federal case?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
That's how the RICO and the CCE. The RICO...
Continuing criminal enterprise.
There you go.
Racketeering, influence, corrupt organization act.
There you
RICO.
Go. There you go. So all of that came in. Okay. Me not knowing. That's why they say the left hand always gotta know what the right hand is. Well, the right hand always gotta know what the left hand is doing. How does it go? The left hand gotta always know what the right hand is doing. Right. Because your right hand man is the one that you gotta keep an eye on.
Gotcha. That's right.
You see what I'm saying?
Right.
So here I am just throwing money in, knowing about these clubs, not knowing all of the other stuff. Because again, my mind in the streets.
Right.
I'm making all the money in the streets and trying to clean up the money.
Right. Counting the money is a job.
Exactly. But I don't know what money laundering is.
Right.
I know what tax evasion is. But I don't know what all that other stuff is.
Now, was Fred Tokars, was he a cleaner also? Did he wash the money also? Did he clean it? Or was he just doing tax? Well, doing the taxes is washing the money.
Well, he washed it up by investing the illegal money into a legal business.
Okay, and that's where they got the RICO.
That's where they get the RICO and the CCE.
That's right.
You see? So, Dominique eventually finds out that Julius is a street guy / drug dealer. So him and his mom goes to Julius and say, hey, look, we want more money.
Dominique and his mom. So when Julius came to him, since he's come with Fred Tokars, the attorney, the white guy, prominent tax attorney, former judge or defense attorney.
Still judge.
Okay, so current judge, former defense attorney. Dominique is thinking this is right. So Dominique is thinking this is. He just doesn't really have any idea that this dude's a straight drug dealer, killer.
Right.
So Dominique comes to him like, listen, I got a problem with whatever, this is street money or whatever. But he's not like, I don't want to do it no more. He's just like, I want more money.
I want more money. Y'all gonna use my name, I want more money. Julius is the opposite of me. I'm a peacemaker.
Okay. You're a peacemaker. Okay.
I want to solve it. But Julius arrogant. He's like, no, fuck that. I'm not giving you no more money. We'll shut the motherfucker down before I give you any more money.
Right, we got a deal.
So he shut the club down.
Shut that motherfucker down.
Shut it down.
All right, so Julius ain't playing with him.
He ain't playing.
All right.
Just like I say, he's an arrogant. Julius was an arrogant motherfucker.
All right, and he's a serious dude, right? I mean,
He didn't play the radio.
He didn't play the radio. I was just about to say that. Yeah, he didn't play at all.
And I'll get into another story about one of my other partners, what transpired. Okay, so he shut the club down. One of the managers knew Deion.
One of the managers at Dominique's.
Yes.
Okay. What was Dominique's response? Did he try and come back, or that was just that?
Whatever his response was, Julius wasn't hearing it.
Right. All right.
Go on about your business, motherfucker. We not even dealing with you.
Dribble the ball.
Dribble the ball. Do what you gonna do. Dunk. Dribble the motherfucking ball. You get the fuck out my face. One of the managers knew Deion.
Deion Sanders.
Deion Sanders.
Wow, prime time.
Which is another 21. So they go to him, offer him 10%.
Just to use his name, baby.
Just to use his name.
I knew of both clubs, but that's the first time I heard that story. I didn't know that. I love the behind the scenes story. You taking us behind the curtain.
That's how it went.
Did you ever meet those guys?
No.
Okay.
No. Again, I was in the street and I didn't want to mix the legitimate business with illegal business because I didn't want to shut down. Right? So after Deion was established and the club opened back up, went to a comedy club called Zazu's.
Zazu's. Okay, where was that?
That was in Buckhead. But it didn't stay open that long. So that was shut down and it went to the Parrot, which was a jazz club.
That was the jazz club on Peachtree. Across the street from Crawford Long, which is now Emory.
Yes.
Emory Hospital. Gotcha.
Which eventually became the Shark Bar.
The Shark Bar. Right.
That used to be the Parrot.
And the Shark Bar had the chef that I believe Puffy ended up coming and stealing that chef and bringing him to Justin's when he opened Justin's.
Could have been, but see, we didn't have anything to do with the Shark Bar. Let me tell you how it became the Shark Bar. The guy James Mason that we were using, the front man. Okay, he was the front man for all of the business, including Dominique's, Deion's, 21, Zazu's, and Julius had a beauty salon before I met him called Park Place Beauty Salon, which was also in Buckhead. But James was the front man as far as the manager there.
James wasn't in the streets?
No.
So that's why he had a clean name. He could be the manager, the liquor license in his name and all of that.
Exactly. He was part of the, what they call it now, the LBGT community.
Oh, okay. Oh, he was one of, okay, LGBTQ. Okay.
So James was in the beauty salon one day.
Gotcha.
And it was a customer. Him and the customer got into it, so he slapped the lady.
Wow. Slapped the customer.
Slapped the customer. Because they got into an argument.
Okay. So James was spicy.
Yes. So she winded up suing James. But by James being part management, part front owner of the Parrot, he put the Parrot up as far as collateral.
Oh, for the lawsuit. The woman said something slick. He slapped the taste out of her mouth. How did Julius take that?
He didn't know.
Wow.
So one day he goes down to the Parrot. He can't get in the club because it's padlocked.
Oh my God.
So he called me and say, man, I don't know what the fuck going on, but the club is padlocked.
Neither one of y'all know.
No, nobody knows.
Right.
At the time, the Phoenix was just beginning to open.
All of these clubs came before the Phoenix.
Okay, yes. But now, this is something that, how can I get into it, that I don't understand. All right. Before the Phoenix was open, the club was called Tracks.
I remember Tracks. I remember the name.
Tracks
was a LGBTQ club. It was one of the biggest in Georgia.
Right. So I never stepped foot in the club. Here again, I'm in the streets just throwing money.
But y'all still had ownership in Tracks.
I'm just putting up money.
Call it whatever the hell you want.
Right.
Just make sure I keep getting this paper when it come in. Right.
So now you got James that's in the community.
He's flamboyant.
Now you got a dude named David. David was the general manager
Of Tracks.
of Tracks.
Okay.
So now when the Phoenix opened, he was the general manager of that also.
Gotcha.
But what they would do, the Phoenix had two entrances. One was on Marietta Street,
Right.
which that's where the hip hop people came in.
Yep.
Around the front, which I can't think of the name of the street, the front of the club is where they would do the LBGT night.
Right.
And they would have to come through the front and up the stairs into the club.
Gotcha.
Now, I don't learn all of this until Julius is murdered
Julius was murdered.
in July of 92.
July 19th.
Now, remember, I'm just saying, Tracks was Tracks before it became the Phoenix.
Right.
So a buddy of mine, two people, a buddy of mine and his partner, which is now my manager, named Fat Tommy, Greg and Fat Tommy went to Julius because Greg met Julius at the same time that I met Julius, because Greg was my runner in the streets.
Gotcha.
But Greg,
Was Fat Tommy in the streets?
no,
Okay.
Fat Tommy was in college.
Okay.
Greg went to Julius. It was like, man, look, we can turn that club that you have and make it a hip hop. And they made a bet, from my understanding. Here again, I don't know.
Right.
I'm learning all this stuff now.
Right.
So they made a bet that if he couldn't bring in $10,000 or more for the event, then they owed Julius the $10,000.
Okay.
But they won the bet. So now Julius renamed, because now the Phoenix was the Phoenix back in the mid 80s.
That's where they. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So they was reviving the club that had already been rocking in Atlanta before at a new location.
Right, but it wasn't hip hop back then.
I got you.
Because hip hop wasn't heavy in the I guess, how can I say it?
Mainstream.
Mainstream.
Okay.
It wasn't. When Julius was murdered in '92, Mary J. Blige, we gave her first concert in Atlanta.
You guys?
Yes.
You gave Mary J. Blige her first concert in Atlanta?
Concert in Atlanta.
Wow. Where was it at?
At the Phoenix.
At the Phoenix you did it. Okay.
The Phoenix held 3,500 people.
Right. Yeah, Phoenix was big. I remember.
Mary J. Blige wasn't even big at the time.
Right.
But we gave her first concert in Atlanta. Nobody else would. So we gave it as our grand opening. Yes. So now, remind you, this was toward the weekend. Now, tracks was still open toward the beginning of the week to the mid of the week.
Right.
I still don't know nothing about this.
Right.
So when Julius is murdered, I go to David, which is the general manager, which he is gay.
Right.
But he was the general manager of tracks, and as the Phoenix did their grand opening, he was the general manager.
Phoenix also. Okay.
Right. So I went in. Well, they called me. They say, Dre, leaders of the new school is supposed to come perform at the Phoenix. Well, we gave them the $20,000 rider,
Leaders of New School had a $20,000 rider back then.
but they wanted $40,000.
Wow.
You know, the rider is what's up front.
All right.
And then before they go on stage, you got to pay the other half.
All right.
So I got the call and say, well, look, you bring the 20 grand, and this is when you'll be introduced as the new owner.
Oh. So Julius was murdered at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Or he would have been the one to bring the 20 grand. I mean, maybe I
Right.
would have split it, whatever,
Right.
but he would have
Right.
bought it. And
Right.
he's the face of the club. This is
Right.
the owner.
Right.
Blah, blah, blah. Why was Julius murdered, and where was he murdered, and what happened?
He was murdered in Detroit.
That's where he's from?
Yes.
Okay.
Believe it or not, I was supposed to have been with him.
Wow. You blessed.
I'm
That's why
blessed.
you're here today.
Yes. But I chose to stay in Atlanta because, again, I'm in the streets.
Right.
So I'm like, no, I got some more business to take care of. You go handle what you gonna handle, and I'm gonna stay here. Because I was supposed to go to Detroit because we was gonna open another club in Detroit.
Okay, I didn't know that side of it.
So we was going to building scout and see what we can come up with.
But you decided not to go. For
I
whatever
decided
reason.
not to go.
How
because
did he
of
get
street.
murdered? Do you know why?
Don't know why, but we got speculations.
Rumors.
Rumors is Julius was on the run from Detroit because they murdered a guy over some turf war.
Julius and his people murdered somebody.
Julius and his people murdered somebody else. And they tried to, it was a couple of people with him. And they thought they had killed the other person, but he wasn't dead. He was paralyzed.
Wow.
So he was still living. So they said that could have been part of it.
Okay.
But the other part is I didn't know what he had went to Detroit for. All I know is we were supposed to be going to look at some buildings, but truth being told, he was supposed to be going to Detroit to make a plea because he got caught with a pistol.
Oh, okay. Wow.
And it could have been that he was murdered because they didn't want him to, because they knew he was going to take a plea.
Right.
They didn't want him to implicate none of them.
Maybe they thought there was some cooperation or a possibility of cooperation.
So, outside of that, remember when I told you James Mason put the Parrot up
That's right. For slapping the lady.
for slapping the lady? Now, Julius is, me and him had a talk. Oh, James Mason was going to get taken care of.
Okay. Wow.
So James went to Fred and other people afraid for his life.
James Mason went to Fred Tokar's.
Yeah, and other people.
Because Julius was mad as hell because he lost the damn club.
We lost the club. You don't put the club up.
Not having emotional regulation and slapping a customer.
Exactly. So once the investigation gets started, Julius was murdered in his mama's driveway.
Wow. That's Detroit style too.
He was murdered in his mama's driveway. Wow. And yes, the neighbor called her mama and told her that someone was laying in her driveway moaning and groaning.
Oh my God, and it was her son.
So the mother goes out and it was Julius, her son. Wow. She called the ambulance and it took them 3 hours
to come.
Wow. 3 hours.
Detroit life.
But he was dead by the time they came. Brain matter in the concrete. With no robbery, with no money taken. He had the Rolex watch on that I had bought him, you know, as appreciation for putting me on.
You bought him that when you was paying him back?
Yes. And he had the phone book in his, you know, next to him with the bullet hole going through it. The feds brought it to me with all the information. When I caught my case, you know, that was emotional. But they searched the area. And down the alley, it was a 357 that was bought from a pawn shop from Georgia. So it was somebody in the circle that murdered him.
What did they say to you when they brought you this phone book?
They was like, it wasn't a murder. I mean, it wasn't a robbery. So what could it have been? I don't know. This was after I got arrested for my conspiracy case while they investigating the Tokar stuff. Right. I have my speculations of who did it. I really do.
To Julian?
Yes. And I approached the guy. We was in Talladega together.
Oh, wow.
And he became a co-defendant in the Tokar's trial.
In the Tokar's trial.
But he wound up pleading guilty and then go to trial with him. Okay. But see, I didn't go to trial. I pled guilty to my things, but I'm sitting back and I'm thinking. Let me tell you what happened to me. Back then, when I got locked up in May of '93, I'm lost. I'm leaving Magic City. And we going down Forsyth Street toward Marietta Street. Okay. We get to the red light at Forsyth and Marietta. Light turn red. And the city of Atlanta police turn his blue lights on. I look over at my cousin and I say, here we go. Because I had a close friend that was with the Atlanta City Police that was attached to the federal DEA. Okay. And he had called me and he say, the U.S. Attorney's Office is running around throwing up papers and happy because they done came out an indictment. Wow. He was like, be careful.
He really knew it was you.
He knew it was me, but he couldn't tell me directly. So now I move everything around. I go stay in hotels. But of course, you know, I'm like, after a while, I go to Magic City. Somebody done called a DEA agent, tipped them off that I was in Magic City.
Magic City. Did you typically frequent Magic City?
Yes.
Yeah, so they know this type of thing. They know this type of thing.
All of the strip clubs. Right, yeah. I went to the strip club 7 days a week. Yeah. 7 days a week. I would go to, we didn't know nothing about making it rain. Right. But we went and spent money. I spent money. I spent $2,000 to $3,000 a night, 7 days a week. 5 days a week, the city of Atlanta was open. But then we went to DeKalb.
So where was you going back then? Was you going to Strokers? Was you going to
Strokers?
What was the other one?
We was going to
Columbia, Jazzy Tees.
We were going to it was one more. It was Guys and Dolls, but they changed it into, what was it? Right there on Ponce de Leon.
Oh, you talking about where the DeKalb Farmers Market is?
Yes.
They're still open.
Yes.
And Strokers is still open.
Right.
We
were going there.
Okay.
Bouncing around 7 days a week.
Right.
But
having fun.
Having fun. So
blowing cash.
Just blowing money. Back in the early 90s, $3,000 a night was,
it's a lot of money. That's $20,000 a week. Yeah. Once again, there's money now. And there's way more then, but still $20,000 a week is not nothing to sneeze at now.
So we get down to the red light. It turns red. I got a police coming from behind me, turning his lights on. Got two police coming from the opposite direction on Marietta Street, turn their lights on, then coming directly at me with the lights on. So I'm like, here we go. So the police officer behind me tell me to get out the car and get on the ground. So I'm like, what's going on? I'm in a Mercedes.
Right.
So I'm like, what's going on? He's like, just get on the ground.
You haven't been caught with no drugs and nothing like that?
No. So, I'm like, what's going on? He said, you through selling your drugs for the night? I say, man, what are you talking about? Right. So he put me in the back of the car. Next thing I know, here come an agent pulling up in a Mustang 5.0. Red hair. Red, yeah. He took my cousin to the corner. He look at him, he show him a picture. My cousin look at him and say, that ain't me. He say, you mean to tell me this big head motherfucker here ain't you? He say, nah, that ain't me. So I'm in the back of the car, I just drop my head. I'm just shaking my head, so they go in the truck. I asked the police, I said, what are y'all looking for? It's 4:00 in the morning. What are you looking for? I'm coming from the Pussy Club. What you looking for? He say, oh, we looking for drugs. Are you through? I say, man, it's 4:00 in the morning. What? I say, who in their right mind, even if they was a drug dealer, gonna be riding around with drugs in the trunk of the car? So they took me to Douglas County Jail.
They took you to Douglas County?
Yeah, but back then, they had Paulding County, they had the Atlanta holdover,
right,
and they had Douglas County as holdovers for federal inmates.
For what?
For the federal inmates.
For the federal inmates, okay, I got you.
So, me and my cousin go, it's about 4:00 again. So, they book us into Douglas County Jail.
Now that's Douglasville, Douglas County, right?
Yeah. So about 5:00. So about 5:00, they come and call us back out. The way they feeding us breakfast. I'm like, man, I don't want none of this shit. So they feeding us breakfast. So next thing I know, here come the agents picking us up. Again, we don't know nothing about no feds, because this shit is brand new. So they take us down to the federal building. They put me and my cousin in a cell the way all you could do was just stand up.
Wow.
Wasn't no walking around. Richard B. Russell. Wasn't no walking around. So agents come and open the door. They say, oh, the big man. They say, you got anything to say to us? I said, no, I don't know what you're talking about. They slam the door back. So now they take us to the marshal. The marshal book you in, give you a reg number and all that stuff. So now I'm waiting to go to a bond hearing. So I walk into the bond hearing, full. Ain't a seat in the house.
Wow. I
see all these artists sketching, and I say, damn, somebody big finna come through here. I ain't know they waiting on me. They waiting on me. Now I'm up at the table laughing at the prosecutor because what he got on. So I'm laughing, looking at the lawyer. He was like, well, they don't want you to get out. I said, oh, man, shit. You know, this ain't shit. My bond hearing lasted 2 days.
Wow. They were trying to say you was a flight risk.
Flight risk, danger to the community. So now I'm realizing that the artist waiting on me.
Wow.
So I get back.
You the sketch.
I'm the sketch. So I get back to, they didn't take me back to Douglas County. They took me to the Atlanta holdover.
They took you to Atlanta holdover. I wonder why they took you to Douglas County at first.
So that was because it was so late at night.
Okay.
You know, the holdover in the penitentiary, you know, they ain't gonna take you down there.
Oh, the holdover was at the medium, at the high, USP.
Right. So once I get to the bond here and they continue it, they take me over to the USP. So now that's where I'm at. So I get in, you know, of course, after you leave court about 4 o'clock, you get booked in, they dressed out. And back then they sent you to the dorm because they didn't have the new facility for the holdovers.
Right.
You was on the compound with the actual,
Oh, wow.
with the USP inmate.
Right, that was convicted, that's staying there.
Right.
Okay.
So we was in the old hospital. So I go in, the news on, you know, everybody want to watch the news.
Right.
Guess who picture on the headline of the news?
True.
Mine.
Wow.
So all I do is just get in the bunk, cover my head up. I'm like, oh my God. So
Shit is real.
shit real. Shit getting real now. So like, damn. Now I'm looking at tow cars standing at the bottom of the Richard Russell building saying these are the hoodlums that murdered my wife.
You were one of the people he was talking about?
Yes. I was the one.
Because he wasn't charged. He's out.
He's out.
Oh my God.
They still investigating her murder.
Because it was black people that murdered her. In front of the children.
But the children say yes, it was a black man. So he say these are the hoodlums that had my wife murdered.
Wow.
So now,
You see him on TV saying that?
yes, at the bottom of the Richard B. Russell building when they did my arraignment.
Wow. What were you thinking then?
I'm like, I've never met this man a day in my life. Who is this man?
And I haven't killed anybody.
I ain't killed nobody.
What have I got myself into?
Not as far as no white woman
Well,
or whatever.
yeah, that's what I mean.
I ain't killed nobody.
I didn't kill his wife.
Shit, who is this?
Right.
So we go on, you know, I'm on the news for 2 weeks straight. So I'm like, oh my God, what the hell is really going on? So you know how they say we drunk? I'm mentally drunk.
Right.
Because I'm walking around like, how am I getting tied up into this? But this was the beginning of the whole investigation.
Right.
So I'm leaving visit one day. I see this guy, he about 6'3", 6'4", weigh about 250 pounds. You know, because I say we mixing with the inmates that's on the compound, that's designated there.
That's right.
So this dude walked up to me, he said, hey, look, I know you. I said, no, you don't know me. I'm looking up at him, I said, you don't know me. He said, yeah, I seen you on the news. He said, you mixed up with that white boy Fred.
Yeah.
That was a prosecutor and a judge.
Wow.
He said, we don't like snitches. I said, well, you can believe me. I don't know nothing about him. So I can't say nothing about him. So he said, if you stand up for that crack and go to trial, you know what you're going to get, right? I said, I'm going to give some time. He said, you know where they're going to designate you, right? I said, yeah, here, Atlanta, this is my city. He said, you won't last a week on this compound. He said, I promise you that. He said, if you stand up for this white boy, he trying to accuse you of murdering his wife, and you go to trial with him, I promise you, you won't last a week on this compound. I looked at him, I said, I don't know nothing. better tell them what you know, or you won't last on this compound. Crocker done sent a bunch of us to jail.
Because he was a judge.
No, he was a prosecutor, remember?
Wow.
I get on the phone and call my lawyer and say, I'm gonna plead guilty. He say, you gonna do what? No, to my case. I say, I'm gonna plead guilty and tell him what I did.
Right.
As far as drugs. I don't know nothing about nothing else.
Right. You gonna tell yourself for your case.
Let me do this. Julius dead. Julius is dead.
That's right.
And gone.
That's right.
Whatever me and him done, I gotta take the fall for it.
Yeah, you can. Because he's dead.
He dead. He gone. That's what I did.
Wow.
That's exactly what I did.
Wow.
They take me, they ship me to Birmingham. No, I get out on bond once I plead guilty to the halfway house. Now me,
Was it a blind plea? Did you know what you were facing?
I didn't know what I was facing.
Okay, so blind plea.
So I pled guilty. They gave me a bond to the halfway house. They wouldn't let me out on a full bond.
Oh, okay.
And it was 1010 West Peachtree Street. If you remember that halfway house.
I remember hearing about it.
It was 1010 West Peachtree Street. Right. So now remember, they don't know nothing about my connect that I got out of Houston. I still got. So now I'm like, I gotta make more money because I know I'm finna go do some time, but I want to take care of my kids and my family. So I get back into doing things from the halfway house.
Oh man, you still jugging?
Still jugging. The guy who was my connect stayed in Fort Lauderdale. I met him in Louisiana, but he had a connect out of Houston, which was some Colombian.
Okay. You met these cats through Julius?
Okay. I met these cats through my best friend in Southern University.
Okay.
He was going to Southern. So I get back into the game because I'm trying to raise money.
While you on bond? And it's living in the halfway house.
Living in the halfway house. Still getting money. So I tell them to bring me 20 keys. Now I'm paying for these 20.
Right.
Once they get to me, I'm cashing out. Right. So he come to Atlanta from Fort Lauderdale on a Friday. His cousin called and say, look, this car running hot. I was sitting on the side of the expressway. State trooper keep pulling over, asking me what's wrong, and I keep telling him it's running hot, this, that, and the other. He said, this is my last run. I ain't doing this no more. That's it. They scared me. So I'm looking at my buddy. I say, well, when were they supposed to leave? Houston. He say, well, they were supposed to leave on Monday. I say, well, today Friday. I say, I'm not going to meet him. So he said, man, he's straight. I said, no, I'm not going to meet him. So he said, well, I get my brother to go and get the car from me. He say, where you at? He said, I'm at a hotel out in Union City by the airport. He said, well, I'm going to send my brother to get the car. So I tell him, I say, okay, if your brother go get it, and he meet us on Moreland off of 285, he can follow us back to the house. So I called my cousin, which was out on bond, on the first case with me. I say, hey, look, man, I say, it's a car problem. I say, no, I know that you know how to fix cars, so why don't you ride with me just in case the car run hot? You can, evaluate the problem, and so we can get the car on to where we need to get it to.
Right.
So we go meet him at the Conoco on 285 on Moreland. Get on, I pull in and I see a whole bunch of cars. And his brother in his side the store buying like snacks and stuff. So he said, well, I'm gonna go get him and he can follow us. I said, okay. So we get on the expressway. I get over in the middle lane. He get over. And I see all these cars get over. At the same damn time. So now I'm looking. I get over. His brother do the same thing. The cars do the same thing, but this time one of the cars stayed in the middle lane and rolled up past us. Well, next to us. I say, hey, look, man, we've been set up. I said, something ain't right. He said, man, they wouldn't do this to me, this, that, and the other. Man, I'm on probation, and this, that, and the other. I say, man, look, we've been set up. So now we get in a high-speed chase. Not knowing it's a helicopter following us. It's supposed to be 26 keys in the car. So the investigation come back that he sent his girlfriend to Houston to pick the car up. Now, she's a black woman with Baton Rouge, Louisiana license. Right. The car is registered to some Colombians out of Houston. So she get pulled over in Texas. Oh my God. And they don't play around in Texas. They shook her up on 16. Wow. So they shook her up. So she tell them that it's dope in the car. Wow. They find the 26 keys and say, where the car going? Oh, this going to Dre in Atlanta.
Andre.
Yes. Yeah. So they say, okay, where the car's supposed to go from here? So she say, I'm supposed to drive it from here to the airport in Louisiana. Okay. And his cousin's supposed to pick up the car. So they take the car to the airport. As soon as the cousin put his hand on the door handle, feds surrounding. Okay, where the car going? Oh, it's going to Dre in Atlanta. They put the fucking car on an airplane and fly it to Atlanta. Take it off and take it to the hotel they designated for the boy brother to come pick up. So they tailed it from there. So now I'm out on bond on this other bullshit for one charge at the time. Right. Then now, here I am on a 26 key.
That's what I'm saying. That's the second charge.
That's the second charge. So I get locked back up. I get locked back up.
Right. And now you ain't getting no bond.
I ain't getting no bond. I ain't even. So now, the lawyer, which was, his name was Herbert Schaefer. Okay. Herbert Schaefer was tough.
Okay. He was good.
He was good.
Right.
He charged me $75,000 for the first charge. Then he came back on the second charge. Well, I'm gonna need another $30,000. So now I done paid this man $105,000 for the two charges.
Yeah, but I mean, you're paying for your life, I guess.
I'm paying for my life, but they still interested. When I caught this second case, the prosecutor was like, he's still a credible witness on what he has done, and this proves the case that he is a drug dealer.
Wow.
He is now got caught up in another case. But again, I don't know Fred. So what they did was use my guilty plea as far as the drug charges to show that he was laundering money for drug dealers. but I couldn't personally put my finger on him because I didn't know him.
But at this time, they still don't know. They still have no idea.
Well, Eddie Lawrence at this time, during the course of all this time, Eddie Lawrence, see Curtis Roy, which was the one that actually murdered the lady. See, Fred organized to where he would be in Montgomery, Alabama, seeing a client. But he left the sliding door unlocked. So whoever was gonna do it, he thought Eddie Lawrence was gonna do it. But Eddie Lawrence went and got a crackhead. They called him Cornbread, but his name was Curtis Roy.
Fred Tokars thought Eddie Lawrence was gonna actually do the murder. He actually paid Eddie Lawrence to do it.
Well, he didn't pay him. But Sarah had a $1.75 million life insurance policy. She found out that he was laundering money for drug dealers because she went down in the office and found papers, and she wanted a divorce. He said, I'll give you a divorce, but you can't take the boys. I want the boys to stay with me. And she was like, if I'm afraid for my life, why would I leave my boys?
Wow.
So he set the whole plot up. So November of 92, Sarah Tokars went to Florida to do Thanksgiving with her family. She returned on that Sunday after Thanksgiving. Curtis Roy was waiting in the house. But once Curtis Roy, which was Cornbread, which Fred thought Eddie Lawrence was gonna do it. But Curtis Roy was waiting when she pulled in the garage and let the garage down. He come out of the house and put the shotgun to her head and tell her to back out. He drove her to an open field, a cul-de-sac in Marietta.
Oh, I didn't remember that happened. So he drove her, or she?
She drove, but he was in the back seat.
And the kids was in the car.
One was in the front seat and one was in the back seat where he was. And once she got to the cul-de-sac, he blew her brains out.
In the car.
In the car. And the brain matter spread it on the boys in the front seat and the back seat. The youngest boy was asleep in the back seat. But then Curtis Roy jumped out the car and jumped in another car with Eddie Lawrence. But the older brother woke his little brother up and they ran through a big open field to the first house that they could run to. And that's when they called the police.
The boys called the police?
No, the boys' house they went to called the police. But see, Curtis Roy was a crackhead. And just like I say, they call him Cornbread. So he had a 15-year-old girlfriend. And his sister...
How old was this dude? How old was he?
25 at the time. Right. And his sister was married also. But see, before he did the murder, he told his sister and her ex-husband what he was going to do.
Oh, wow.
But he wanted them to drive him to help him do it. But once he did it, he went back to the house. Eddie Lawrence dropped him off, and he put his bloody t-shirt and a shotgun up under the bed. And he told his 15-year-old girlfriend to watch the news. That's what I did.
Wow.
So guess what? She's scared. Yeah. So all of them went to the police.
Okay. And that's how they found out?
That's how they found out, because Curtis Roy started cooperating. He told on Eddie Lawrence. Eddie Lawrence then told on Tokars. But see, Tokars had met a girl at Magic City. Her dad's name was Nadia. He had initially asked her, did she know somebody who would do a hit for a certain amount of money?
Wait a minute. Who said it again? Who was that? What was that connection again?
Eddie Lawrence took her to Magic City.
Okay.
So he met this black girl.
Okay.
Of course, she gave him some pussy.
Eddie Lawrence met this black girl.
Eddie Lawrence introduced Fred to the black girl.
Gotcha. Oh, this guy Fred told cars.
So she gave him some pussy. She turned him out.
Yeah, she gave him that black pussy.
Yes.
So he said,
hey, he just started talking. So she wound up testifying in the trial. Dominique testified in the trial. Deion testified in the trial. Along with
Dominique and Deion testified in the trial? Because of their dealings with him through the club. Okay, so yeah, when they have a trial like that, they bringing everything out.
So, when we had Zazu's, it was a police recruit working as security at Zazu's. James Mason, again, just like I tell you, he was the general manager. He was part owner. Some money came up missing. So he blamed it on the police recruit. The police recruit, they kidnapped the police recruit and gave him a certain amount of time to turn in that money. Never turned in the money. So they went and kidnapped him, stripped him down butt naked. These were my partners. Stripped him down butt naked in the apartment on the second floor. Police recruit. They started putting hot knives and opening up wounds and putting salt in the wounds.
Wow.
So my other partner was like, I'm hungry. He looked at his other partner and said, I'm hungry. So they dragged the police recruit, blood dragging. He was tied up, put him in the bathroom. They didn't tie him up good enough. They went and got something to eat. My partner sitting out eating his hamburger, they eating their food. The police recruit jumped out, run out the bathroom, jumped off the second balcony, butt naked, saying, help me. They're trying to kill me. The state could never find him. But when the Fed case came up, guess what? They found his ass. And he testified to where he was kidnapped and tortured.
Oh, so he didn't, okay, because he was a police recruit, but he was involved in the nightlife. He probably stole the money. So he wasn't going to tell.
He didn't steal the money. James Mason, come to find out, stole the money.
Wow. But the police recruit wasn't going to tell.
He was saying he didn't know nothing. He ain't took no money.
He said there's nothing to tell. But I'm saying.
But he was afraid for his life.
That's what I'm saying. He didn't go to police about them kidnapping him?
They couldn't find him.
Right.
He went to the police at first.
Okay.
But when the trial, they had to drop the charges on my buddies because there was no witness.
Right. He was scared.
He was scared.
Right.
But the feds went and found him and put his ass on the stand. And he testified to being kidnapped and tortured and what they did to him and all that. Yeah, we didn't play the radio.
Yo, that's crazy. Yo, that's so much to digest, brother. Man, we gotta come back maybe 2 or 3 more times because it seems like we just getting you just getting going.
Let's do it.
Let's do it. All right. So, man, we're looking forward to it. We're gonna come back. We're gonna sit down because there's no way, with the experience that you have and what's in your head, that you can give it to us all in one sitting. It's impossible. So that's what's up. So with that, I'm gonna just give you an opportunity to tell people some of the things that you're doing now. I know you got some trials and some tribulations that you're going through right now. But just give us a vision of what you're gonna be doing while you're going through this trial and tribulation, because I know that you got some community outreach coming up. Give us a little bit about that and what you want to do, how you want to change lives, how you want to impact others, and how you want to let them know that the choices that they make can have devastating consequences.
Oh yeah. I definitely want to educate people, especially our people, because our people is mainly involved in the drugs. They don't know the devastating effect that they have on the community and the children. Our children are future leaders of tomorrow. I want this to be educational, not glorified.
All right. Y'all already know what it is. In and Out Podcast. We continue to bring you the realest of the real. All of these people is vetted. There ain't nothing fake about it. We the realest podcast in the street and everywhere else. INNOUTWW. I got to say it one more time. If the surviving lions don't tell the tale, then the hunters will get all the glory. I'm going to say it again. If the surviving lions don't tell the tale, then the hunters will get all the glory. We ain't going to let that happen.
Population control.
There you go. I want to thank my brother one more time, Andre Willis. Legendary lion status. Bringing it to you real. Telling you the behind the scenes stuff. He's taking us behind the curtain. The Black Hand Gangster. Controlling, manipulating things back in the 90s when nobody knew his name. The original ghost. We're going to keep bringing it to you, and you know who we are. INNOUTWW. In and Out Podcast. Continue to like us, follow us, comment, share with a friend. Keep tuning into us on all forms of social media. You know where to find us. In and Out Podcast, WW, In and Out Podcast. Keep checking us out. We appreciate you for checking in, and now we signing off. Peace.